All right, welcome everyone. Bill here with Dr. Tracy Gapin MD in Sarasota, Florida. Tracy is the owner and operator of Smart Men's Health, and he has his own optimization and precision health clinic out there in Sarasota. He helps men optimize themselves and get into just the nitty gritty of what exactly it is that makes them healthy versus looking at the simple approach that we do a lot of times. So Tracy is kind enough to be on here with us, and we thank him for his time to just kind of go through his story and kind of get his background. Tracy and I met through an epigenetics course that we both took, and basically we took a mastermind that we talk about strategies and ways that we can get optimization out to the general public and to our clients. And we got to know each other through that and just kind of hang out a few times. And we're just grateful that he was able to come on the show with us and just kind of give us some background into what he has going on with optimization. So Tracy's one of the few people that I know that actually been through COVID-19. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, Tracy, I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of a background, and maybe you kind of share with everybody here about optimization and kind of like what got you into that, and just kind of like what your background story is. Obviously you an MD, you work in urology, and so you have that part of your system, but what is it that like keyed you into optimization, and kind of like what's your background with that?
I appreciate it, Bill, and first of all, thanks so much for having me with you here today. It's always fun to join you. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a urologist, a board certified urologist. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And I developed my own health issues maybe 5 years ago or so when I hit a wall and I realized that I needed help. And I actually went for the first physical exam of my life at that time. At that time, I was stressed out from working hard, trying to raise my little kiddos. I had one at the time. Wasn't eating very well because I was so busy at work, and wasn't working out well because I didn't have time to, because I was so busy at work. I was stressed. I wasn't sleeping well because of that, and I felt like crap. And it was a real eye opener for me when I went to my doctor and we did some basic labs, and I found that my lipid panel was off the charts. My kidney function was not great. I was overweight, and I kind of had this coming to Jesus moment, if you will, that I realized that I needed to kind of reverse course. And that got me into the rabbit hole of epigenetics and how to optimize health and go beyond the disease model that I was trained in through my medical education. Medical doctors, we're great at solving a crisis, like the corona crisis, or if you have a kidney stone, or if you have cancer, or if you have a disease, we're very good at treating that disease and stamping out symptoms. But when it comes to actually promoting health and being preventive in our approach, medical doctor training really comes short. So that's what got me into the epigenetic program that you and I were in together, Bill. And that really changed my life. It changed the course of my practice. It helped me personally, and I'm now able to provide an entirely different approach for the men whom I treat. So I see men in my medical practice on a daily basis who would come in asking for testosterone, and they think they have low T, or they were diagnosed with low T already, or they've been on testosterone, it's not helping them, or how do I check my T? Everything's about testosterone. And what I found is that testosterone is really only a small portion of men's health and performance, maybe even only 10, 20% at the most. And so everything else, a whole body systems-based approach, is what I have discovered men need to truly reverse course and optimize their health. And so that's how I got to where I am now, Bill, where I'm helping men optimize their health, looking at the entire body, and taking an individualized and personalized data-driven approach when I do that.
Right. And I guess from my experience and just what I have dug in and seen myself is there's stress and lack of sleep and not exercising and probably nutrition. I'm sure nutrition's in there. Like if you don't have those things in order, then it's likely that your testosterone is going to be low. And so if you come in just for testosterone and don't even look at those, obviously you boosted your testosterone, and that's great. And that does help. And that's a big part of it. But I imagine you probably get that nice little bump from that, but then it levels off and then it starts to, go down again. But I think fundamentally, like it gets to that aspect of like managing your lifestyle first and then look to those things. Is that kind of where you moved from,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly right, Bill. Men have thought that testosterone is the magic bullet and that's going to solve their issues. And testosterone is important. It is a vitally important hormone, and I don't want to minimize how much men need that, but it's only a small portion of the overall picture. And so, a systems-based approach means that we look at nutrition, and we look at your stress response and your sleep and your detox pathways and how you're clearing toxins that you're exposed to, your fitness and other hormones such as thyroid and cortisol and insulin and growth hormone, and all these other pieces come together to a nice picture of promoting health that testosterone alone can never do. And now with epigenetics, we can take that much further and be very individualized and take a personal approach to that, because everyone's uniquely different. And your unique chemistry and genetic profile is going to dictate how you're going to respond. So, there's no perfect diet, for example. Some men are going to lose weight and burn fat, build muscle with low complex carbs, whereas others actually need high complex carbs, for example. Same could be said for saturated fats. Men have trouble sleeping. Almost every man I see has poor sleep, and there are various genetic inputs that can cause that. And so it's understanding this bigger picture of all the different pieces that come together, and that's what I do. That's how I help men, is focus on the big picture.
Right. So looking at that, so let's just back up a little bit. So I know some of our clients may know exactly what we're talking, but for some of the people who may not know, what does it mean just when you're talking about epigenetics and genes and DNA and all that stuff? And then also, how does one go about doing this and getting their DNA and all that?
Yeah, great question. So we are born with chromosomes from our parents. We have 23 chromosomes from mom, 23 chromosomes from dad. And our chromosomes are long strands of DNA. And that DNA is our unique code. And that code, short segments of it, are genes. And those genes code everything that happens in your body. Thousands and millions of times a second, these genes are creating proteins and enzymes and what you need for your body to function. And so as you go through life, your genetic blueprint doesn't change, but your lifestyle, your environment affects how those genes work. Meaning what we eat, how we sleep, how we move, how we think, the chemicals in our environment, sunlight, toxins. I can go on and on. All these inputs into our system change our DNA. It's called epigenetic marks that are left on our DNA, such as methylation and acetylation and other complex chemical processes, where our DNA gets affected in its configuration, in its function, so that your body's function changes accordingly. And so epigenetics, which technically means above the genes, is how all of these different inputs around us ultimately affect genetic expression. And why does a guy care about genetic expression? Because that is your body's function. That's how you burn fat and build muscle and think clearer. and have sexual desires and sexual function, and be able to be strong and have a good mindset. And everything else about the way your body works comes down to genes and genetic expression.
Right. So you've been doing this, and I guess you said like 4 or 5 years ago you kind of had the wake up call, and fast forward to about 3 months ago, and you were in Vail skiing with your family, and you were there, and I guess you were exposed to the coronavirus. Obviously, it's probably an area where there's a lot of international travel and things like that, with people coming in from all around the world. And so, you've been optimizing your health for about 4 years now. You've been looking at epigenetics, and you've been looking at ways that you can make yourself healthy. If you were presented with the same scenario that you had 3 months ago, and you had that 4 years ago, what kind of outcome do you think would have happened?
Yeah, good question. I mean, obviously, we'll never know, so it's all conjecture and speculation.
Right.
But what we do know from several studies is very clear that outcomes related to exposure to the novel coronavirus are directly tied to your general state of health. Meaning, it's clear that elderly people, immunocompromised, patients who are diabetic, insulin resistance, obese, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, all these chronic illnesses, they're at a markedly increased risk of mortality from COVID exposure and COVID infection. And so, what is really critical to understand here is that the best way to treat coronavirus is to be prepared if you're exposed to it. And that comes down to optimization. It comes down to taking a proactive approach to your health so that you don't have insulin resistance. You're not obese. You have a healthy, vibrant, robust vascular system. And your immune system is as optimized as it can be, so that if you get exposure like I had, you'll make it through. And so I like to say that I practice what I preach. And I feel that every little micro decision you make throughout the day comes together to have an effect on your health. And so being proactive and focusing on the bigger picture and not waiting for disease to happen, not being reactive, but being proactive, I think is really the key. So what would have happened if I got exposed to this 5 years ago? I think the outcome would probably have been different. We'll never know for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what we're seeing, and I really hope out of this outcome, just from the virus and all that, is people really start to take their health seriously and recognize, like, hey, if I'm not strong and I don't have a good immune system, then I'm going to have a lot more challenge, and it's serious consequences when it comes to this. So obviously you're doing, you optimize your epigenetics, you know, like what nutrition's best for you. You kind of know your sleep routines. Let's see what else. Nutrition, sleep, you're exercising, right? What kind of things are you tracking on a daily basis to kind of make sure that you're staying healthy with your immune system? And, because obviously there's some kind of data being presented there. What are you watching? Like, what are you looking at there?
Yeah, great question. And I know you're a big proponent of wearable tech and tracking data and measuring it, as am I. So I love that you bring this up. So I am a huge advocate for wearable tech and tracking data. And if you can measure it, you can manage it. You've heard that phrase. And what's really important is to be able to use objective data to make decisions and leverage that data to make the right decisions for you. And so I track several things with my devices for myself as well as my clients. Number one is heart rate variability. Now, heart rate variability is the variation in your heartbeat from one beat to the next. And when you go to the doctor and the doctor checks your heart rate and they say it's 80, it's truly not 80. It's actually 79.97, 80.01, 80.03, 79.99 with each beat. It varies by microseconds each beat. Why do we care? Why is this important? It's critical because that variation is actually a surrogate for your overall health. It's a direct marker for the state of your physiology and your state of recovery and the balance between the different aspects of your nervous system. You know, we have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. And these nervous systems are basically in competition with each other for function.
Tracy, I lost you. Hold on a sec. There you go. Yeah.
My earbuds were dying.
I figured that.
Why is this important? Why am I going down this little bit of a rabbit hole? It's very important because the sympathetic nervous system is like your stress response. It's fight or flight. It's rapid heart rate. It's high blood pressure. It's sweating. It's anxious. Your parasympathetic nervous system is associated with rest and digest or relaxation or mindfulness and at peace. And this balance between the two is a direct reflection of your physiologic health and your recovery. And so we can look at heart rate variability as a direct surrogate for that balance. And so high heart rate variability is good. It's a sign that you are physiologically robust, you are recovered, you are in a healthy state. And that will change throughout the day. It'll change minute by minute. It'll change day by day. And you can use that data to understand how your environment, your lifestyle, what you're eating, what you're drinking, how you're breathing, how you're sleeping is affecting your physiology. And again, that is epigenetics. That is how everything around you, every little decision that you make, every choice in your life is affecting your health. And you can measure it directly with simply a watch on my wrist. So heart rate variability is a big one. Sleep is another huge one as well. Sleep, I track not just quantity of sleep, but actually quality of sleep. And by that, I mean that there are various stages of our sleep, and these various stages will have different functions for your recovery and restorative features. And deep sleep, we know, is very critical. And most men who get poor sleep, the deep sleep is the phase of sleep that suffers. And that's the most important phase, that plus REM. And so wearing a device allows you to track the different stages of your sleep to understand, again, how your life and everything that you do is affecting not just the quantity of sleep, but the quality as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So one of the best things that has worked for me for decreasing alcohol consumption has been my Oura Ring.
Right.
So yeah. So like I used to think, yeah, 1 or 2 drinks, I'll be fine, and I'll go to bed and, you'll sleep, your eyes were shut and everything like that. But what you'll find out, is at least what I found out, is like your HRV stays low. You want it high, it stays low. And then the amount of time that you go into deep sleep and REM sleep is very minimal compared to your baseline. And
Right.
so it's, as I started to watch that, and I would think, oh yeah, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm not getting restorative sleep, nor am I improving my heart rate variability to take on more stress. And I think, being optimal, you have to be, you have to have that high heart rate variability. And really, I mean, it comes down to just like, for me, when I'm my HRV is higher, and I can do more. I can be more present with my family. I can, help more people out and things like that. So you really get this, outward look versus just being about yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Data is huge. If you have the data, you can make informed decisions. And I love that you bring up alcohol, because I've seen the same thing, and it has a dramatic effect on your physiology. And I'll never tell my clients and patients that they can't drink. I'm not here to be your babysitter or your dad. What I'm here to do is to show you how that input, how that lifestyle decision is affecting you, and you make the decision that's right for you. And for some men, that gets them down to maybe having a glass or two of wine a week instead of having 3 drinks a night. And so that's the power of data.
Yeah, I mean, no one had to tell me to quit drinking. I just looked at the data. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And then I don't feel good too. So
Sure.
I think I'll just hold off on that. Yeah. Or hold off on that extra one for sure.
There you go.
So, yeah. So like I'm an engineer background, and so like I've just seen some of the stuff that you do with Excel spreadsheets. Where does your analytic background come from? Because you're one of the best I've seen at spreadsheets, and I'm like, wow, this guy's doing macros and all kinds of stuff. So what is that from?
You know what? I have a very technical mindset. I'm all about organizing the data. How do you combine it in a way that you can actually leverage it and make use of it? And so whether it's your genetic data, whether it's the biometric data that I track, I love spreadsheets, Bill.
I do too, and it kind of relates well to what we enjoy, is that everything is complex. It's not easy. There's never just a silver bullet, and we have to look at the whole picture. So I totally agree with you there. So. So I kind of wanted to just visit a little bit more to kind of make this a little bit more relevant, and just more along the lines of like the COVID-19, obviously. So you were obviously doing your epigenetics and all that. What other strategies did you kind of use to kind of get through that time of being sick and all that?
Oh, peptides. I'm glad you brought that up, Bill.
Right.
Love peptides. So, so peptides were really key in my recovery as well. Again, I'll never know for sure how big of an impact it had, but I'm a huge proponent of peptides. For those of the listeners who are not familiar with peptides, peptides are simply chains of amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of all proteins. And you can link multiple amino acids together to make a peptide. A chain of under 50 amino acids is called a peptide. A chain of over 50 peptides to 100 peptides amino acids is called a polypeptide. Excuse me. And then over 100 amino acids chained together is called a protein. So that's the terminology. And so peptides can be isolated from humans. For example, growth hormone and insulin are peptides, some of the original peptides ever discovered. But now we can use peptides for a number of very specific, precise purposes. There are peptides that have been developed to help boost immune function, which was relevant for me in the coronavirus experience. There are peptides that are great for reducing inflammation, whether it's joint and musculoskeletal inflammation or actually gut inflammation. There are peptides related to neurocognitive function and neurodegeneration and improving neurophysiology. Peptides related to burning fat, losing weight, reducing appetite, building muscle. Peptides for sexual function. It's a fun one. Increasing libido, hair loss, skin rejuvenation. Goes on and on. The applications to peptides is expanding almost daily. So coming back to me and my story with COVID, I was prepared in that I had peptides on hand that are specifically used to immunoregulate your body and to turn on specific aspects of your immune system to protect you. And so that night, that Friday night in March when I got sick, I started thymosin alpha, and I started LL37, and I started C-Link. And those peptides are all in one way or another useful for boosting immune function, and they have an antiviral effect as well. And so they were amazing, Bill. And I use peptides for myself and in my clients for numerous other functions as well. But for me, with the COVID experience, I think that definitely had some effect on my recovery.
So epigenetics, lifestyles, and then kind of peptides on top of that. So when you help someone optimize and like somebody wants to come to you, what is it that, what do you start with? Do you usually start with the genetics, and then how does that process usually work? Blood work, all kind of like what you would go into if it was a typical customer.
Yeah, great question there, Bill. The best way to start is really focus on what the hell do you want to achieve? Like, what are your goals? And I say that half jokingly because a lot of guys come to me and all they want are peptides or testosterone. And they want the tactics and the tools. But those are not what's important.
Right.
Those are just things that we use to reach our goal. First, you need to understand what the direction is, where are we going, what are we trying to accomplish? And then we develop strategies around that goal. And then we would develop tactics and tools to help you achieve that. And so, whether it's the peptides or hormone optimization or genetic kit, all those are tools once we know what we're trying to do with you. And so how I start is I simply sit down with you, and now that may be via video call, where it used to be, face to face, and start with, Bill, what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? How can I help you? If you can reach the best possible state, what does that look like for you? And so I think that's really key, is focus on what's the transformation we're trying to accomplish and where do you want to go? Because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what the destination is, I can't help you. I can't help you reach somewhere where you don't even know what that is like. So once we get past that, once we really know at a very granular level what you're trying to accomplish, then we start using strategies, Bill. Then we look at epigenetics. We look at a genetic template, your blueprint. And that's a simple cheek swab where we can collect your saliva and use that to create your genetic blueprint. We take a deep dive into your labs, looking at cardiometabolic labs and inflammatory labs and hormones and electrolytes and markers related to your lipids and your sterols. And we combine that with the genetics, with a detailed health assessment, and those help us understand where you are now. And that's when the fun starts, because once I know where you want to go, and once I know where you are now, that's when the fun can begin and we can start getting you there.
Right. I think that's an important point. I mean, like, somebody might come in and say, yeah, I just want to feel good. Well, you're like, okay, that's great. Why is it that you want to feel good? And they're like, well, they start digging and finally you figure out, well, maybe they don't have a good relationship going on at home, right, with their wife, and things aren't going there. So like, once you figure that out, then it's really a good strategy to start implementing things versus just like throwing, everything at a shotgun approach and just trying to figure it out. But once you can focus on what that goal is, so that is more of the aspect you want to get at versus just generalize, feel good, get to the point what it is.
You there, Bill?
Yeah, I'm there.
Hey,
we got on the other one.
All right, I'm here twice now. Great.
Yeah. Oh, I was just talking about how somebody might come in and say, oh, I want to feel good, right? I want to just, versus like, well, you start peeling back the layers and you find out, well, maybe they don't have a good intimate relationship with their wife, and that's really what they're trying to get at versus just, I don't feel good, and And so really trying to find out what that driving mechanism is so you can, go at about approach in precision, right? Versus just, the whole gamut and all that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Bill. I call that your why.
Yeah.
What is your why? And you're spot on that people may say they want to lose weight. Well, that's not really your goal necessarily. Your goal is you want to feel fulfilled in your relationship with your spouse, and you feel that your weight is standing in the way of that. So it's getting deep into your why, and that's critically important.
Right. Yeah. So you have your practice there, and I guess if anybody wants to reach out to you, they can obviously do that. What's kind of the way to get connected with you? Best way?
Yeah, sure. So my website is smartmenshealth.com, and I have a guide, a Male 2.0 guide that I have created that's going along with the Male 2.0 book that I'll be launching shortly, which is tagline is cracking the code to limitless health and vitality. And the guide that goes along with that is a workbook, if you will, a play along at home guide that goes along with the book. And your listeners can have that as a free download. They can go to drtracygapin.com/book, and you can download a free copy of that guide.
Okay. And so when's the book going to be released?
Yes, Bill.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, so it's been ready to go. I've been working on just a few of the last little details, and hopefully should be ready in the next month or two. The book itself is done. It's all the extra stuff that you think won't take long, but does. So I'm really excited to get that launched pretty soon.
Well, yeah, I'd love to, when you get that out, maybe circle back and just kind of see how things are going. And obviously I'll have a chance to read it, to dive in a little bit deeper and see what's going on. So
that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, Tracy, I don't want to take too much of your time. So I just wanted you to come on and just kind of share your optimization strategies and just share a little bit about the COVID-19 that you had there. So that was interesting to hear about that. But yeah, I just really appreciate your time and coming here and discussing this with us. I learned a lot here, so I'm sure everybody else did too. But this is a really neat time, and I'm grateful for your work that you're doing, helping other men and just in general people out there find out ways that they can improve their health.
I appreciate it, Bill. Always good times with you.
You bet. All right. Well, yeah, let us know if we can do anything for you, and then we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Bill. Take care now.
All right, you too. Are you there?